If you can ride a motorcycle slowly, you'll be a much better rider at road speed. Slow speed training allows you to learn the techniques of riding a motorcycle while reducing the risk of riding. But many riders can ride down the street with no problems at road speed, and they're totally lost whenever they have to control a motorcycle at slower speeds, because it's easier to ride at road speed and it requires less technique than riding a motorcycle at slow speeds. The good news is that the three biggest mistakes that riders make in slow speed motorcycle control are fairly easy to correct and will make a huge difference in your ability to ride a motorcycle on the street. So if you're having trouble controlling your motorcycle at slow speed or in a parking lot, this video will help. Hey, my name's Kevin. I'm a former MSF and total control instructor in Fort Worth, Texas. I release a weekly video here on MCrider focused on road skills or road strategy to help make you a better rider. So what are these three common errors that riders often make at slow speeds? Well, perhaps the biggest mistake that riders make is their lack of awareness or using the friction zone. So what is the friction zone? Well, good question. All right, so if I've got my clutch hand here and I fully squeeze that clutch in, I've removed all power from the rear wheel. Doesn't matter what I'm doing with the throttle, the motorcycle's not going to go anywhere. If I fully release the clutch, all the power is going to the rear wheel. But if I squeeze that clutch back in and I slowly begin to release it, at some point, that clutch is going to give partial power to the rear wheel. It's going to start pulling me forward. That is the friction zone. And riding a motorcycle with the clutch held in the friction zone is how you ride a motorcycle smoothly at slow speeds. I learned this when I got back into riding. I took an MSF class in Southlake, Texas. I had not ridden since I was a kid, and I took this class several years ago. I was making the figure 8, and I had gone through a couple of times, and I was making it on the small motorcycle, but I wasn't real smooth. Rider coach pulled me aside and said, hey, don't forget, get that clutch in the friction zone. It's going to smooth those figure 8s out for you. Next time through, clutch in the friction zone, man, it's like a light bulb went off for me. Made all the difference in the world, and it was not something I struggled with for the rest of the weekend. But I still see riders out on the street in slow speed situations trying to control the motorcycle with the brakes and the throttle alone, just like I was. Or if they do use the clutch, it's all the way fully engaged or it's fully released. Nowhere in between, and no time are they using the friction zone. So the next time you need to control the motorcycle at slow speeds, if it feels choppy and you can't seem to get the throttle just right, it's probably because you're not using the friction zone or you don't have the clutch in the friction zone. Another huge mistake that I see riders make during slow speed control is using the wrong brake. In a car, you've got a brake pedal, right? It controls all of the brakes, front and rear, with a single control. On a motorcycle, you have separate controls for the front and rear brake, and knowing whether to use both brakes or just one of the brakes and which one can make a huge difference in your control on the motorcycle. I bet the use of the front brake at slow speeds, especially if the handlebars are turned, has led to the sale of more aftermarket clutch and brake handles and mirrors probably than any other rider mistake. Because I don't know of a quicker way to drop a motorcycle than to use the front brake at slow speeds, especially if the handlebars are turned. If you need to make a U-turn or other slow speed motorcycle control, and you can get that clutch in the friction zone and you can drag the rear brake using a little bit of rear brake to help control the speed and give the bike more balance, you're 2/3 of the way to controlling that motorcycle. By keeping the clutch in the friction zone and using the rear brake to control the motorcycle, you'll be smoother at slower speeds. But there is one important technique to controlling a motorcycle at slow speeds. And if we add this one other technique, you'll have everything you need to make tight U-turns, control your motorcycle in stop and go traffic, and to pull into a gas station under control and with confidence. That final technique is easy to say, but it's not always easy to do, and that's because it's not natural to us. So I'm going to walk to the back of the room and I'm going to make a left-hand turn, just walking. Tell me what looks weird about this. All right, so I'm going to walk straight ahead. I'm going to make a left-hand turn. So why did that look weird? Well, it's because we don't walk and turn that way. For years, you've been walking and turning something more like this. Because this is how we're used to walking and turning. As soon as you start riding a motorcycle, some motorcycle riding instructor starts telling you to turn your head and eyes and look where you want the motorcycle to be and not where it is. But that's not something that we do naturally while we're walking. So none of that feels natural to us, but it is the final step in slow speed motorcycle control. Do you want the motorcycle to be over there? Turn your head and eyes and look over there. You'll be surprised at how big a difference that makes. Another thing about turning your head at slow speed is if you have a lazy head turn, your motorcycle's going to have a lazy turn. But if you're more deliberate about your head turn, getting the head and eyes turned, your motorcycle will be more deliberate when it makes its turn as well. I know that sounds weird, but the motorcycle really will follow where you put your head and eyes, and the more deliberate you are with those head turns, the more deliberate your motorcycle will be when it turns as well. Now, it'd look pretty weird if we walked around the office using that motorcycle head turn, you know, as we're navigating the cubicles through the office. But even when you're not riding your motorcycle, you can practice this in your car, and it'll look a little less weird in your car. But if you start doing this in your car, turning your head and eyes, looking where you want the car to be, you'll be shocked at how much more aware you are of your car's surroundings as you're headed into turns out on the street. So it can help in a car, but it's crucial on a motorcycle in order to make those tighter, slow-speed turns, also to make faster, wider turns, or to navigate an intersection. Turn your head and eyes or point your nose in the direction you want the motorcycle to go. If your turn on a motorcycle is not as sharp as you wanted it to be, the odds are that the problem started with a poor or lazy head turn. So the 3 techniques to sharpen your slow-speed motorcycle control: use the friction zone, use that rear brake, use proper head and eye placement, getting those head and eyes turned, pointing your nose where you want the motorcycle to go. If you master these 3 techniques, you'll have the foundation to control your motorcycle at slow speeds. Now all that's left to do is to go out there and practice. Members of MCrider have access to the field guide where I have training exercises that can be performed on any open parking lot. You can learn more about becoming a member at mcrider.com/member. Members also get access to the member map to find other members to practice and ride with, the forums where riders and other riding instructors are there to answer questions and talk motorcycles. You can also get ad-free MCrider videos, free decals, hats, and t-shirts. Just go to mcrider.com/member for all the details. Till next week, guys, it's Kevin with MCrider, and I'll see you on the road.